the ground swelling of unionization right now is one of the things that gives me a lot of hope in the opposite direction for all of this very apparent and transparent rise of the far right globally. By the way, this is a global movement and this is a global pushback. There seems to be a unification. Doesn't matter if we look to Japan and what they're saying right now. Doesn't matter if we look to Brazil and what they're saying right now. Doesn't matter if they look to Modi in India and what they're saying right now. There's a universal condemnation and vilification of trans people, of gender ideology, all this kind of stuff, while there is an economic downturn and destability that is caused by a myriad of factors. But one of the ones that you never hear about in the mainstream media is corporate greed. And you only hear about, well, it's the government. You see, the inflation is happening because of Trudeau, or the inflation is happening because of Russia, or the inflation is happening because of Ukraine, or the inflation is like, that's the only things you hear in mainstream media over and over and over again. The time has come, everybody. We have a new leader in Canada. I have to switch to my political room. Ba-bam.
Back is this. To the Prime Minister and to his radical woke coalition with the NDP. Here's my commitment.
So, Pierre, I have been saying, predicting, if you will, for a long time, was going to win the Conservative leadership of Canada, and it happened. I was 100% on point with this one. He is now the Conservative leader, and he is very, very dangerous for a handful of reasons. Not just because he's a human Milhouse. Like, he is actually the fully grown version of Milhouse. If Milhouse was an adult, this is what he would look and sound like. But the other thing that's really, really scary, he is courting the far right and the anti-vax crowd and trying to combine them into a new populist right. And that is the future of conservative politics.
Conservatives are always happy to work with any party to collaborate and extend and advance the interests of Canadians. We are. But there will be no compromise on this point. Conservatives will not support any new tax increases, and we will fight tooth and nail to stop the coalition from introducing any.
So he's a fake populist, by the way. And the really dangerous thing about fake populism is it is actually very, very easy to stoke and inflame fear and anger in people. It's really, really easy. A lot harder to control it. Much harder. So he's playing in a very dangerous realm.
Well, Pierre Poilievre became the 6th Conservative leader since 2015 with a resounding victory in the first round of voting over the weekend. He addressed a crowd of supporters at his caucus meeting this morning and issued a challenge to the Liberal Party to not raise taxes.
And we're joined right now live by Scott Reid, CTV News political commentator. Thank you so much.
No, I'm the political commentator. We don't need to hear from him.
Conservative leadership candidate Pierre Poilievre briefly joined and led a protest against vaccine mandates today. But what's interesting about this is the man who marched alongside him. See, that's James Topp, and he has been marching across Canada to protest vaccine mandates. But in May, Topp spent over an hour on a far-right figurehead's podcast and said he supports that man's show. That figurehead was Jeremy Mackenzie, who was part of a controversial, infamous YouTube broadcast back in January. In it, he said the so-called Freedom Convoy could bring down the government. And his co-host said they'd like to assemble gallows at Parliament, which Mackenzie said he'd like to watch. Earlier, before Mackenzie joined the broadcast, his co-host said they wanted to see the Freedom Convoy be Canada's version of January 6th, which is when Donald Trump's supporters stormed Capitol Hill. Despite Topp's ties to this man, Pierre Poilievre told Global News in a statement that he never said he wouldn't meet with Topp. What do you think about Poilievre's decision?
Yeah. He's actually in a picture now with Jeremy Mackenzie. They're shaking hands. And then right away, because he's the founder of Diagolon, it was asked, hey, Pierre Poilievre, are you going to disavow this far-right organization in Canada? And just like Donald Trump, he was like, I obviously condemn white supremacy and white supremacist organizations. And I've said that. I'm anti-racism. I'm not for racism. And that's as far as I'm going to comment on this. That's just like Trump. You know, stand by and stand down, stand up and stand by, twirl, twirl. So, CBC Pitchpot, awesome account. You should probably all follow it on Twitter. In depth, is Pierre Poilievre racist? Fascism is a far-right, ultranationalist political phenomenon which seeks to resolve all social contradictions caused by existing social order with repression and violence. Fascism as a social phenomenon typically emerges in a period of capitalist socio-economic crisis. This phenomenon typically starts as a political movement in a portion of the middle class who experience a decline in their socio-economic standing. We are fed up. Wealthy business people who donated to far-right Convoy believe they are oppressed. Top donors that bankrolled Freedom Convoy include investment bankers, real estate investors, and startup gurus. This is why it's so dangerous, and I've been pointing this out with America. Same thing is happening right here in Canada. Yes, economic downturns affect everybody but the ultra-wealthy. They make more profit. So yes, people who are average business owners, as the cost of living and expenses go up, it becomes harder for them, especially in a recession or depression or a stagflation. It becomes harder for them to generate as much wealth as they used to. So as the cost of living goes up, the cost of food, gas, all of that continues to rise. It is difficult and more difficult for medium to small businesses to survive in that kind of an arena. Everyone is going to look to try and preserve their way of life, preserve their system that was benefiting them so much, preserve capitalism as it is. And so that's when you see the very scary shift towards fascism. When sections of the middle class decline in economic status, members of that class who benefit from structural oppression, historically white and male, may turn to fascist politics en masse to return to better times when those systems better protected their economic status. Violence is a unifying force for members of a fascist movement. Expect attacks against marginalized groups, whether it's transphobic, oftentimes right now that seems to be the current othering that they're choosing, trans people, homophobic, anti-black, or anti-indigenous violence. Violence is often directed at women, immigrants, or even public services like hospitals. I mean, look what's happening to Boston Children's Hospital in the United States. All the warning signs are here, everyone. As the socioeconomic crisis develops, trust in traditional policies or traditional parties decline as they fail to help most people in need. Yes, did you see what fucking, and I'm so sad to say this, Jagmeet Singh ended up tweeting out about Pierre Poilievre? I have to scroll to get the exact quote. This was like, as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh no, oh fuck. Oh no, oh fuck. I would like to extend my congratulations to Pierre Poilievre on becoming the leader of the Conservative Party. I know we will disagree on a lot and rarely find common ground, but it's time Canadians have leaders that tell the truth and refuse the destructive politics of division. He has chosen the destructive politics of division. Jagmeet, like, do not play into this civility politics when the person on the other end is like, like, what the fuck? At the time, members of the established capitalist class may see the groundswell of support for fascism as an opportunity. And right now, in America, they're rebranding it as Christian nationalism. And they're trying to say, it's not that bad, actually. Why is everyone scared of this term, Christian nationalism? Really, are we not a Christian nation? Was this not a nation founded on Christianity? And are we not proud American nationalists? So, you see, if you combine the two words, it's not as scary. If you watch the latest episode of Alex Jones, it is one of the most mask-off things. Now, you don't have to watch it. Listen to the Knowledge Fight podcast. I'll break it down. In that episode, he spreads the most incredibly racist lies at the start of it. He starts saying that black on white violence is a massive phenomenon in the United States, and it has gone from 10 to 1 to 20 to 1 in the last couple of years. Now, all of those numbers are made up, as is the fact that black on white violence is like a huge thing to be concerned of in America. The average amount of people who hurt white people are white people. The average amount of people who hurt and kill black people are black people. If you look at the statistics, there's not this overwhelming disparity where black people are just going after white people. It's a 100% racist conspiracy theory to stoke fear and to stoke fear amongst white people that, oh, holy shit, a race war has started and black people are uniting and they're killing all of us. 100% conspiratorial. But Alex Jones is just saying that right now. Just doesn't care, openly saying it. Also going off about how gay people eat poo, like fucking the 1990s called, they want their bigotry back kind of shit. Then he brings on a guest, and that guest starts going off about Christian nationalism, telling everyone, by the way, this is not something we should be afraid of. We should be embracing it. Everybody, I'm telling you, Christian nationalism is the pathway forward. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the QAnoners, Lauren Boebert, all the far-right MAGA figures right now, they're all pushing this. They're all saying Christian nationalism is good, actually. Like, do not be fooled. This is them already trying to butter people up and soften them for full-on fascism. That's where it's moving. If you want to see what the Christian nationalists do, look no further than what the fucking Christian nationalists are doing in the Supreme Court. They want to limit the rights of trans people, limit the rights of women, control their bodies. Like, this is all the writing is on the wall right now. It's one of those things where it's like, if they tell you that they are going in this direction, fucking believe them. Knowledge Fights is the name of the podcast. At the critical juncture of the crisis, sections of the ruling class merges with the fascist movements, granting it institutional legitimacy and the backing of state forces, such as the police or military. RCMP feared that Mounties might leak operations plans to Convoy protesters to show documents. Members of the police military enthusiastically join the movement, while police forces selectively repress on-the-ground opposition to fascism and turn a blind eye to fascist organizations, even if they officially break the law. Police still investigating officers' donations to the Freedom Convoy fundraiser. Funny that. Police beginning to move counter-protesters backwards, using bikes to do so. Do you remember how much trouble the police had with actually dealing with the convoy protesters? How there was footage of them helping them, like setting up tents and stuff, giving the thumbs up, walking by, being like, hey, how's it going? Occupying force in the city. Same thing with January 6th. At first, they were just kind of like, holy shit, what do we do here? I mean, I don't want to hit all these MAGA people, right? It's confusing. Money pours into the movement, and institutional media starts vocalizing support for increasingly fascist policies. The momentum draws in more members of the capitalist class, and the media blitz even attracts some mostly white male, etc. supporters in the working class. Established media plays a central role in the rise of fascism. If outlets are not outright supportive, they may downplay the danger or rely on traditional parties with collapsing support. Media may even cast fascism as the better-than alternative if progressive movements appear. With the loss of legitimacy for traditional parties caused by socioeconomic crisis, these traditional parties become powerless to stop the rise of fascism. Only an alternative that meets the material needs of working people can stop fascism at that stage. As fascism comes to power, its first move is to crush any alternative to its rule using police or paramilitary violence as necessary. Any opposition would have been organized ahead of time to act decisively and successfully overthrow this period of repression. During this period, political organizations are neutered and repressed, followed quickly by the repression of organized bodies of workers and oppressed groups. While the demagoguery can be convincing, working people and oppressed groups have nothing to gain from the rise in fascism and everything to lose. If they are organized, they can outnumber and outmaneuver the fascist movement. If opposition fails, fascism becomes entrenched in power. Once in power, fascism tends to immediately empower corporations while disempowering workers, as well as enriching and entrenching all forms of structural oppression, patriarchy, settler colonialism to benefit the dominant group. Since fascism relies on violence and the repression to resolve social problems, the ranks of the police forces swell alongside their budget, while all other social spending is slashed. New study just came out the other day that showed that increase in access and affordability to healthcare decreases crime. Who would have thunk it? But one of those things where every single time you hear a politician say the solution to crime is not less police, it's more police, what they should be saying is the solution to crime and poverty is addressing these things head on. One about enacting programs that help out people's material needs, people's material conditions. The groundswelling of unionization right now is one of the things that gives me a lot of hope in the opposite direction for all of this very apparent and transparent rise of the far right globally. By the way, this is a global movement and this is a global pushback. There seems to be a unification. Doesn't matter if we look to Japan and what they're saying right now. Doesn't matter if we look to Brazil and what they're saying right now. Doesn't matter if we look to Modi in India and what they're saying right now. There's a universal condemnation and vilification of trans people, of gender ideology, all this kind of stuff, while there is an economic downturn and destability that is caused by a myriad of factors. But one of the ones that you never hear about in the mainstream media is corporate greed. And you only hear about, well, it's the government. You see, the inflation is happening because of Trudeau, or the inflation is happening because of Russia, or the inflation is happening because of Ukraine, or the inflation is like, that's the only things you hear in mainstream media over and over and over again. The solution to stopping fascism for good is organizing a political alternative that can actually meet the needs of working people and end all forms of structural domination, stopping fascism's root causes. And this is it. Because this rise is not simply because people are inherently vulnerable to wanting to hate minorities or hate LGBTQ people or hate diversity or stuff like that. It's not that. It's that these same problems under capitalism affect everybody. And so everyone starts to get fucked over because people have been so brainwashed into how they think about this kind of stuff, basically because all mainstream media continues to focus on other things rather than the things that affect them. Like, how often do you see in the media fucking shows like Cops and show you that violence and theft and burglary always usually happens by Indigenous and Black people, and this is where crime is, and this is what it looks like, blah, blah, blah. They never talk about wage theft. They never help out workers in that regard. They never talk about how the majority of theft in both the US and Canada is wage theft, is bosses withholding money, not paying proper salaries, not paying overtime, sometimes not paying at all, and just basically holding back the cash that they owe their own employees. But they never talk about that. That's never in the mainstream media. That's never a story. You never hear, when you think of crime, you think of the dangerous Black people breaking into your home. Oh no, they're going to rob you. Oh no, they're coming for you. Oh no, it's an Indigenous person. He's probably drunk on alcohol and he's going to smash crash your car. That's the only thing that you start thinking of, because they're consistently playing that narrative and trying to program you, trying to get that into your heads. So you think, yes, that's the bad thing, the thing I should be scared of. We should give more money to the police. We should not talk about how we're exploited. We should not be affected by any of this kind of stuff. Over and over and over. It's like a constant cycle. But he's not declared himself to be fascist, so we probably don't have to worry about it. So he is 100% courting this crowd right now. He knows, because he's seen how effective it was both in the convoy and in general, both in Canada and the United States right now, I should add. And you're going to see more US politicians doing this. He's not going to outright say Christian nationalism. I don't predict that, because that would not play well in the polls here. He's going to do what he does, which is a very safe kind of public centrist position, but also court people with populism. Fake populism, by the way. That's why this is very, very dangerous, because if you have politicians who are getting in front of the microphones and saying, hey, it's all those goddamn elites. It's the globalists, it's the New World Order, it's the Great Reset, and it's all these rich elites who are fucking all of us over. All of us. Who are these elites? I'll never name them. I'll never point them out. I'll leave that to your imagination. You can color that in with whoever you want. Have fun. But it's these globalists who are trying to control you. And they're trying to lock us all down. That's right. They're trying to make us take an experimental vaccine. They're trying to shut down our society. And it's all these liberal coastal elites who are trying to destroy everything. And that's why we have to stop them together. And make no mistake, because we should also talk about this.
Recently, the entire country breathed a sigh of relief when the nation was pulled back from the brink of a federal election. But nobody breathed easier than Conservative Member of Parliament Pierre Poilievre, who will now qualify for a full pension the same month he turns 31. Pierre Poilievre, the workers of Canada salute you.
Congratulations, Pierre.
Yay, Pierre.
I don't have a pension.
Yes, very few Canadians qualify for a full pension at the age of 31. Well, in fact, there really is only one, and that man, Pierre Poilievre, which is why we wanted to throw a party for Pierre and get some fun stories from people who have worked with Pierre before he became a member of Parliament. Now, unfortunately, we cannot find any evidence that he actually held what most of us would call a job. So if you worked with Pierre at an actual job in any capacity, say as a co-worker, please contact us with a witty story so we can honor a great Canadian. Conservative MP Pierre Poilievre, you loved him when he said natives in this country need to learn the value of hard work.
He said what?
And you laughed when he said we can't afford to amend EI to cover more workers.
That little
Whoop. And you will cheer when he gets his pension.
Am I paying for that?
Yes, you were.
Yep.
Pierre Poilievre, one
all
hell of
are.
a guy. One heck of a pension.
That was 12 years ago. Yeah, that's this little bit came out 12 years ago. And here we are. So giddy up, Canada. Because this is going to be one hell of an election. We're in this really awkward position now where Jagmeet Singh is basically propping up Trudeau's cabinet. And he has already said publicly that if Trudeau doesn't instill the public dental program by the end of this year, he's not going to do that anymore. And I don't know if Trudeau's going to do that because Trudeau kind of thinks he can get away with just not doing shit like that. So that would trigger an election, at which point Pierre Poilievre could conceivably, it would be a difficult road, but not an impossible one, begin paving the way for a minority conservative government or a potential less likely majority conservative government. But that could be what happens. That could be within the next couple years. So, yeah. Because that basically is when an election will be triggered, when there's a vote of no confidence.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tal, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.